Today, we'll be looking at a very important part of the syllabus, and by that, I mean you cannot miss. I mean you cannot but meet this particular topic in the exam. So there is 80% to 90% possibility that it will be set, and it is so certain that if it comes out, it's going to be 20% of the whole 50%. And when 20% is done already, I'm sure you can find your way through the remaining 30. So let's move on. The idea of oil and gas taxation started, but the major cause of this edict is actually from the time they signed Petroleum Industry Act. Before, it used to be Petroleum Profit Tax Act, right? But beginning from 2022 year of assessment, there are a lot of modalities that have changed with regulating to oil and gas industry. The popular one is that we no longer have Department of Petroleum Resources again in Nigeria. And the regulatory bodies for oil and gas have been streamlined into two. You know, if you recall, we have two major activities of the oil and gas operation, right? We have the upstream and we have the midstream and downstream. The midstream and downstream, I mean, the PIA created the midstream and downstream. Before, it used to be the upstream and the downstream, right? But the PIA now gave a broad definition to say we have the upstream and we have the midstream and downstream combined together. So the PIA also gave NNPC. Are we all on the same page, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the PIA
Yes, sir.
also was the enabling act that caused the total privatization of NNPC. So NNPC was converted from a commission or corporation to become limited liability company, and the shares of Nigeria, shares of the government, cannot be sold, right? With in relation to the Petroleum Industry Act. Are we all on the same page, please? So like I said, we have to classify the petroleum activities into two. We have the upstream activities and we have the midstream and downstream activities. So what are the upstream activities? The upstream activities are activities that involve acquisition of licenses, exploration, development, production of crude oil and gas, treatment of oil and gas processing and transportation, and delivery to export terminals, as well as refining or other processing plants. So we have three major operations in the upstream. We have petroleum exploration license, we have the petroleum prospecting license, and we have the petroleum mining lease. I think I'll need to come back to that again. We have one, the petroleum exploration license, two, petroleum prospecting license, and three, the petroleum mining lease. Now, we need to look at them one after the other because it can be tested as you explain what exploration means, what prospecting means, and what mining lease means. So petroleum exploration license covers petroleum prospecting and mining licenses, and that is called PML, Petroleum Mining License. And the approval is valid for 3 years and also renewable for 3 years. Are we all on the same page, please?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Do you understand the exploration license now? So,
sir, please can you repeat yourself? I think it got disconnected.
Okay. For the petroleum exploration license covers the petroleum prospecting and mining license, and the approval is valid for 3 years. So immediately you get the approval, right? The license will stay with you for 3 years, and you can renew the license for 3 years, right? Also, for the petroleum prospecting license, right? The duration for the license depends on the acreage. And by the acreage, if there is anybody familiar with Petroleum Profit Tax Act, you must have been familiar with something we call water debt in the computation of petroleum investment allowance. Are we on the same page?
Yes, sir.
So if you have been familiar with that, in place of the water debt, what we now use or what this act uses instead is acreage. So the area in petroleum prospecting license has a maximum of 350 square kilometers for onshore shallow water acreage. We have 1,000 square kilometers for deep water offshore acreage, and we have 1,500 square kilometers for frontier acreage. I will beg you, I know not everybody have opportunity or opportunity to operate in the oil and gas space, but for the sake of this class, we'll be using some of the oil and gas terms. So try as much as possible to adjust. I'm not an operator in the oil and gas sector too, but I only know as it relates to tax. So if it comes to me explaining, I may not be able to give you the oil and gas explanation, you understand? But I should be able to give you as it relates to taxation. All right, so let's move on to petroleum mining lease. Petroleum mining lease has a maximum period of 20 years, including the development period. An onshore lease will use 5 years, where the development period is not available. A lease in shallow water, deep offshore frontier acreage runs for 7 years. You have to know the years because they will be playing out in the question. It is also, so for anybody who has the petroleum mining lease, you can, the license, those who have the oil prospecting license under the Petroleum Profit Tax Act can now convert to oil mining lease. And also the oil mining lease can now convert to petroleum mining lease. Do you understand? So the incentive under the Petroleum Profit Tax Act are not transferable under a model contract. So NNPC also can only participate up to 60% in a concession agreement as a bid parameter. So NNPC Limited do not have a joint venture with the mining license or the mining lease agents. In this case, they cannot do concession for over 60%, or the joint arrangement cannot exceed 60% concession arrangement. Does that make sense to you?
Okay.
Also,
Okay.
it is important for us to note that with the advent of Petroleum Industry Act, all oil and gas companies or oil and gas operators will now be subjected to tax on preceding year basis. Is that clear enough?
Yes.
All right, good. So let's move straight to downstream activities. So these are activities that takes place from receipt of crude oil into crude oil tanks or gas into petrochemical tanks to the transportation of refined products to the final user or of processed plants to secondary industry. So the activities include transportation, refining, liquefaction of natural gas, distribution and marketing of refined petroleum products, gas and derivatives, right? And they are subjected to tax under the Company Income Tax Act as amended to date. And so they cover storage facility, processing of natural gas, transportation, construction of fertilizer plants, OC gas supply. Are we on the same page?
Yes, sir.
So the midstream and downstream petroleum sectors in Nigeria carry out gas and petroleum liquid operations. License of midstream and downstream gas operations include, or the licenses that are granted by the development. Am I too fast?
Let's go on.
Okay. The licenses that are granted under the midstream and downstream gas operations are: 1. Gas processing license. 2. Bulk gas storage license. 3. Gas transportation pipeline license. 4. Wholesale gas supply license. 5. Retail gas supply license. 6. Gas distribution license. 7. Distribution gas aggregation license. You will not be tested from that perspective. All right, public service levy. So there will be a tariff imposed on customers for complying with public service obligations on license. And the authority has the capacity to issue license and also give modalities as it relates to license. And the operations include exportation and the operations of the midstream and downstream petroleum liquid operators include exportation or importation, established crude oil refinery, bulk transportation, and bulk sale. Right? And then we have license of midstream and downstream petroleum liquid operations, and they include crude oil refining license, bulk petroleum liquid storage license, petroleum liquid transportation pipeline license, wholesale petroleum liquid supply license. Are we on the same page, please? So we said in the beginning of the class, we have two major regulatory bodies. Unlike before that, we have up to 5. They've been restricted into 2. We have Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and we have Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Right? So Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, is this a good time to be doing theory? I hope you are not dozing up. But don't worry, we'll gel up with calculation now. Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission is responsible for upstream petroleum operations. The commission promotes the exploration of frontier basin. Also, the commission determines and collects royalty, signature bonuses, related payments, or production shares where the model contracts include production sharing or rig service provisions and gas flare penalty. All right. Where do they get money from? Where do the commission get money from? The commission get money from money appropriated by the National Assembly, fees for licenses, lessees, permit holders, and other authorization, cost of collection, publications, income, and relative activities, fees paid to the commission for using facilities owned and managed by the commission, grants, aid, gift, testamentary dispositions, endowments, and contributions. And so I will have to think about it. I will have to think about it. So Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. The Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority is responsible for the midstream and downstream petroleum operations. The authority ensures the accuracy of metering pumps, and MDPRA also regulates the domestic base price of wholesale petroleum products. And source of fund for MDPRA includes federal allocation, licenses, lessees, permit, and related fee, is 0.5% of statutory levy, publication income and similar activity, fees for using facilities of the authority, grants, aid, gift, testamentary dispositions, endowment, and contributions. All right, so let's move on to this. But because I want to be on the safe side, I will still do the provisions of Petroleum Profit Tax Act, although we don't expect the examiner to test it. But in case he tests it, you would have something to fall back on. You understand?
Okay.
Well understood.
Like I said, I will still have to think about it for the material. And obviously, I'll have to seek permission. All right. So, are we still on the same page?
Yes, but the line went off a bit, but we are back now.
Okay, good. Upstream, midstream, and downstream operations. Every person engaged in petroleum operations must register with the authority. Now, for the purpose of hydrocarbon tax liability, there's something we have to understand. We have to understand the idea of host community development. And host community development fund, you remember in your public sector accounting and finance, if you still remember, you did something called fund accounting, right?
Yes.
I remember when you were doing fund accounting, you were taught something about fiduciary fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And under the fiduciary fund, you were taught something around trust fund.
Yes.
Good. All right. So HCD is a fund, it's a trust fund, like your pension fund. But this one is different from the pension fund, actually. It's different. It's different. Because the oil and gas, the way it operates is this. The players in the oil and gas are actually having issues with the environment. Right? So because of the oil spillage, right? And a lot of problems, especially in the Niger Delta area, those guys are actually lamenting every time, right? So there's a fund created for the host community development, for sustainability development, right? So every player in the oil and gas sector is expected to contribute to the fund, and the contribution is 3% of the actual operating expenditure in the preceding year calendar. But this fund, any contribution made by the player into this fund is actually tax deductible. Does that explain host community development fund or host community development contribution? Does it explain it to you? Hello?
No.
Hello, sir.
It doesn't. Okay, let me explain it again. Every oil and gas player operates, especially when it comes to drilling, exploration. They do it oftentimes around the waterways. You must have heard of the people in Bayelsa complaining that their fish is no longer surviving in the waterways. Right?
Okay.
So the government made it compulsory for every player in the upstream sector or in the upstream activities to make a contribution of 3% of the actual operating expenditure in the preceding calendar year for the benefit and sustainability of the host community, right? And this contribution made to that fund is tax deductible. In other words, is that it is an allowable expenses. Does it explain it now?
Okay. Okay.
All right. Then we have Frontier Exploration Fund. The Frontier Exploration Fund seeks to promote the frontier basin in the country. And so the Frontier Exploration Fund is 30% of the profit, oil and profit gas of the NNPC Limited. So that is just the idea of Frontier Exploration Fund. Do we understand?
Well understood.
Good. Now, FIRS is responsible for the collection of the tax, and the major tax they'll be paying now are hydrocarbon tax, common income tax, and tertiary education tax. And so it means that there is no provision of the PPTA will be relevant in the PID. You know, for under the PPTA, if you remember, companies are subjected to tax at 85% of their chargeable profits, less the memorandum of understanding, Abi. Hey, you have forgotten, or many people don't know it, Abi. Let's assume that a lot of people here are first timers. Abi?
Yes.
If you are first timers, that means I don't have much stress. But if you are not timer, I will beg you, try as much as possible to delete what you know before, so that this one can actually enter. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So hydrocarbon tax. Hydrocarbon tax applies to companies engaged in the upstream petroleum operation. So it is therefore safe to say that the hydrocarbon tax is now used in place of what? Petroleum profit tax. And it applies to crude oil field condensates. It also applies to natural gas liquid derived from associated gas and produced in the field upstream operation. So let's just move straight to allowable expenses. Actually, you know that the allowable expenses, it must pass the principle of rent. Only reasonable, exclusive, and necessary. Right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yes, sir.
so it means rent incurred under petroleum mining lease is allowable, royalties allowable, repair and maintenance expenses allowable, drilling exploration expenditure of the first well appraiser of the first exploration well is allowable. Also, what is allowable is first two well appraiser cost. I repeat again, first two well appraiser cost, whether tangible or intangible. First two well appraiser costs. Also, decommissioning and abandonment costs approved by the fund, approved by the commission. Then we have statutory levies. Stamp duties is allowable. Stamp duties is allowable. Fees allowable. I have my reason for mentioning stamp duties again. If you recall, under Company Income Tax Act, stamp duties for issue of shares is actually disallowed, right? But stamp duties in the context of the Petroleum Industry Act is what? Allowable. Cost of gas reinjection wells is allowable. Contribution towards the community development trust is also allowable. Recoverable expenses are allowable. Let me put it here. Let me put it into perspective. Bad debt is disallowed. Any form of bad debt is disallowed. Any form of bad debt is disallowed. Specific, general, disallowed. Are we together? Interest is disallowed. Interest on borrowing, whether it is at market rates or it is between related parties, disallowed. Arbitration and litigation cost, disallowed. Research cost, disallowed. Development cost, disallowed. Expenses relating to head office or affiliate, disallowed. Are we together, please? Capital expenditure,
Yes, sir.
capital employed, disallowed. Some recoverable under insurance contract or indemnity is disallowed. Should I come again with that? People are sleeping. Oh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, with you, sir.
Some recoverable under insurance contract or contract of indemnity is disallowed. Any rent or repairs not incurred for the purpose of operation is disallowed. Rent or repairs not incurred for the purpose of operations is what? Disallowed. Also, rent or repairs. Are we together?
Yes.
Repairs,
We
sorry,
are.
not rent this time. Repairs relating to the improvement of an asset is disallowed. Repairs relating to the improvement of an asset is disallowed. Also, income tax on profit tax or similar taxes is disallowed. Any donation made to orphanage, to widows, tithes, offering, zakat, disallowed. Actually, tithe and offering is not in the act too. I just included that. But any donation whatsoever is disallowed, provided it's made to orphans, widows, savings, and provident fund. Is actually
Yes, sir.
disallowed. Yes?
Is this a new finance act that you are mentioning?
Yes. No, not Finance Act. Petroleum Industry Act.
Okay.
Depreciation, disallowed. Custom duties, disallowed. Contribution to pension, disallowed. Production bonuses, signature bonuses for petroleum deposits, bonuses or renewal fees for petroleum mining lease, disallowed. Do we all understand?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes, please.
I mean, these are
What?
Approved pension, is he also disallowed?
In the context of PIA.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Any question? Please.
Sir.
Yes, please.
You said any form of bad debt is disallowed. So that
Yes.
means anything bad debt in PVA, petroleum profit tax, you have to disallow it.
Not petroleum profit tax. You know, we've left that place down. We're now in Petroleum Industry Act.
Oh, sorry, I joined late, so I don't
So
really
let's
know.
talk current. Let's talk what we are talking now. You understand? So it's better so that we don't confuse things up. All right. No worries. Are we still on the same page, please?
yes, sir.
Now, under Common Income Tax Act, the Common Income Tax Act says adjusted / accessible profit. So in the context of Common Income Tax Act, what you have is adjusted profit, and it also serves as your accessible profit, right?
Yes.
But in the context of Petroleum Industry Act, there's difference between adjusted profit and accessible profit. And the difference is loss relief. Are we on the same page, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Come again, sir, please.
Come again, sir. I didn't get that.
I said that adjusted profit is different from accessible profit in the context of PIA. So you deduct your adjusted profit. I mean, you deduct your loss relief from adjusted profit before you determine your accessible profit. Right? So in order to bring us back to the class, just to illustrate what we've done what we've said so far about allowable and disallowable expenses, let's quickly solve an illustration.
So you dropped this PDF for us, right?
Okay.
If the voice is too sweet, we can end up sleeping.
Okay, man should read for so that the barito will not let the lady sleep dead.
Colamod
I like this your
Petroleum
class, sir.
Nigeria.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Colamod Petroleum Nigeria Limited is a subsidiary company of a foreign oil and gas company. The company has been involved in petroleum prospecting and exploration upstream for both local and foreign sales for over 10 years. As a corporate board policy, the management meets and considers the reports in respect of its operations on quarterly basis. The results for the first quarter, January to March 2022, of the company, as prepared by the finance controller, revealed the following. Income, value of oil sold, exports, 900,000.
You don't need to
Value
call
of
the
oil.
figures. You don't need to call the
Okay.
figures. Just
Okay.
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 The major thing the examiner is testing here. You have a long list, and also you have two options, and I will show you the two alternatives. Do you understand? I will show you. If you can be patient with me, I will show you the two alternatives to getting the same thing. So you can now decide which one do you want to use in solving the question, right? So sorry for cutting in. Please go ahead.
Okay. Value of oil sold, local. Value of gas sold, other income, gross revenue, expenses, production cost, tangible
So
drilling cost
hold
for
on.
the
Let's just run the exercise once and for all together. When you mention a cost, we will determine if it is allowable or disallowable. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So that it will make everybody familiar with it. So production cost, how much is it allowable or disallowable?
Allowable.
Allowable. Anybody saying disallowed? Anybody saying is disallowed? Next one, please.
Tangible drilling cost for the first appraisal well.
Allowable or disallowable?
Allowable.
Disallowable, Abi?
Allowable.
Yes.
Disallowable.
I didn't get you. Are you saying allowable or disallowable?
Allowable.
Allowable.
Okay, next one, please.
Intangible drilling costs for the first appraisal well.
Allowable or disallowable?
I don't know.
Allowable.
Allowable or disallowable? Feel free to say anything, right? And in
Allowable.
case
Allowable.
there is an issue, we'll add it together and divide it by two. So we have intangible, Abi?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So which one are you saying? Are you saying we should add the two together and divide it by two? So allowable or disallowable?
Allowable.
Okay. Next one, please.
Allowable.
Cost of gas reinjection wells.
Allowable or disallowable?
Allowable.
Cost of gas injection. Well, I guess you wrote note when I was dictating, when I was explaining you. Somebody must have written that note. Allowable, Abi?
Yes.
Anybody saying it is disallowed? Is there anybody saying it is disallowed? Okay, good. We are good to go. Next one, please.
Cost of drilling 3 appraisal wells.
Allowable or disallowable?
Allowable.
Disallowable.
Allowable.
Two is allowable.
Two is allowable.
Disallowable.
I thought it's the first 3 wells that are allowable. From the 4th one is disallowable.
No, it's first two well appraisal costs. It's first two, not first three. Okay, is it clear now? So what we are doing is first two well appraisal costs. So it means in the cost of our solution, we would have to prorate the 24,000. Next one, please. Next one, please.